Hello, this is Dr. Grande. Today's question is, can I analyze the case of Katie Richard? Just a reminder, I'm not diagnosing anybody in this video, only speculating about what could be happening in a situation like this. If you enjoyed this video, please like it, subscribe to my channel, and consider supporting me on Patreon. I will put the link to Patreon in the description for this video. First, I'll look at the background of this case, move to the timeline of the incident, then offer my analysis. Kathleen Richard was born sometime around 1997. She went by the name Katie. In January 2019, she met a man named Gustavo Flores Guerra, who served in the Coast Guard. The couple became romantically involved, and Katie became pregnant in February 2019. Katie also served in the Coast Guard. She was a yeoman second class. She and Gustavo married, and in June 2019, they were stationed together at the Coast Guard Base Kodiak in Alaska. This base is 250 miles southwest of Anchorage and operates an air station, which conducts maritime patrols and search and rescue missions. In October 2019, Katie and Gustavo had a daughter named Scarlett. Now moving to the timeline of the incident. On April 18, 2020, Katie and Gustavo were spending time with another couple named Daniel and McKenna O'Leary. Gustavo and Daniel washed cars, as Katie and McKenna watched television in the O'Leary family home. Eventually, Katie went back to her residence in order to put Scarlett in her crib for a nap. 3 hours after putting Scarlett in the crib, Katie returned to the nursery to feed her. Upon encountering Scarlett blue and unresponsive, Katie started screaming. She and Gustavo drove Scarlett to the Providence Kodiak Island Medical Center, where Scarlett was pronounced dead. Medical staff indicated that the baby probably died of SIDS. A few days later, an autopsy was performed. Small bruises were found on Scarlett's chin and on the back of her head. The medical examiner determined that Scarlett's death was, quote, consistent with asphyxia due to the prone position of the infant in the bedding, unquote. Also, it was noted in the report that the swaddling of the infant could have contributed to her death, so maybe Scarlett was wrapped too tightly in a blanket. The manner of death was ruled undetermined. The medical examiner indicated that Scarlett may have been caught in the blankets, or there could have been an active pressure on her. The Coast Guard Investigative Service came to believe that Katie must have killed Scarlett. They interviewed her for over a dozen hours. On June 19, 2020, Katie agreed to another interview. 2 special agents, one male and one female, sat with Katie for about 1.5 hours and conducted a disorganized and rambling interview, which was video recorded. The agents were unbelievably verbose. Katie needed a Coast Guard icebreaker to get a word in edgewise. Or, put another way, if words were converted into water, even the Coast Guard could not have prevented Katie from drowning. Toward the beginning of the interview, Katie talked about how she had symptoms of post-traumatic stress disorder and postpartum depression. She also inquired about collecting a life insurance policy on her daughter. The special agents told Katie that Scarlett did not die from SIDS. Rather, she was smothered. They then repeatedly tried to get Katie to confess to killing Scarlett. Katie told the agents several times that she didn't remember what happened. She mentioned that she had freaked out when Scarlett cried. Katie swaddled Scarlett. She wondered if it may have been too tight. She also admitted to being rough with her daughter, but did not think those actions caused Scarlett's death. The agents kept asking if Katie put her hand on the back of Scarlett's head and neck and pushed her face into the mattress. Katie indicated that she did not remember doing this, but at one point she said that she might have done it. This statement did not satisfy the agents. They kept pushing for a concrete admission of guilt. They made several statements which were controversial. They told Katie she was not going to end up in jail or prison. Rather, what she needed was mental health care. The agents said that the interview would not be publicized and that confessing might help prevent other people from dying. Over the course of the interview, the agents reinforced this theme that if Katie would just confess, nothing bad would happen to her. It was almost like they were making her a promise. At one point, an agent said, "We're not lying to you. You're not in trouble." The agent was lying to her, and Katie was in trouble. Katie Richard was arrested and charged with murder and obstruction of justice. She later recanted the quasi-confession. The government's theory of the crime was that Katie must have pushed Scarlett's face into the mattress for up to 90 seconds during a time when the two of them were alone in the nursery. There was an 11-minute window. Katie's court-martial started in January 2022 in front of an 8-member jury. She was found not guilty of murder and not guilty of obstruction of justice. However, she was found guilty of involuntary manslaughter. On February 8, 2022, Katie was sentenced to 6 years in the brig. Over 2 years later, on March 5, 2024, her conviction was overturned. The court ruled that the charging papers did not specify an act of negligence on Katie's part. On April 18, 2024, 4 years to the day after Scarlett died, Katie was released from the brig and returned to active duty. She told the media that she now works in personnel and is being transferred to Virginia. She complained that her prosecution had resulted in her divorcing and her family disowning her. She believes that her daughter Scarlett died of SIDS. Technically, the government could have retried Katie for involuntary manslaughter, but it appears as though they have decided against that idea. Now moving to my analysis. Katie Richard maintains her innocence, and she has a large number of supporters. Some people look at the interrogation video and question whether Katie really confessed at all. They also view these special agents as incompetent, awkward, prolix, and creepy. The government, of course, disagrees. They believe that Katie must have smothered her daughter. This brings me to the question, was Katie guilty of any crime in this case? Let's take a look at the evidence both for and against the idea that she was guilty, starting with the inculpatory factors. Prior to Scarlett's death, Katie made curious and disturbing internet searches. For example, quote, "What do I do if I feel like I want to hurt my baby?" unquote. And, quote, "What do I do if I hate being a mom?" unquote. Several photographs were taken of Scarlett in the time leading up to her death, including one photograph that was captured at 1:37 p.m. on April 18, 2020. This is just a few hours before Scarlett died. The images did not capture any bruises on Scarlett's body. Images captured when Scarlett was taken to the hospital revealed a bruise on her chin and on the back of her head. This is consistent with Katie pushing Scarlett's head into the mattress of the crib. On the day Scarlett died, Katie was alone with her for 11 minutes, which was enough time to commit murder. During the poorly conducted interview, Katie mentioned Scarlett's life insurance. She admitted to being rough with her daughter and swaddling her in a manner that might have been too tight. When asked if she pushed Scarlett's face into the mattress, Katie responded that she might have. The government claimed that Katie deleted electronic data from her cell phone and laptop in an effort to interfere with the investigation. They also claimed that Katie let her husband do most of the parenting, and she moved on quickly after Scarlett's death. Moving to the exculpatory factors, the investigation into Scarlett's death was mismanaged. For example, there was a plastic and cloth bib around Scarlett's neck that was never recovered by investigators. A photograph of the bib indicated that it appeared to contain a dark and wet substance. The bib left marks on Scarlett's face. Maybe she was strangled by it accidentally. Investigators also failed to recover Scarlett's clothing, her crib, and her mattress. The scene of Scarlett's death was not well controlled by investigators. For example, Gustavo was allowed to return to the crib and place a rose on it. During the interview, Katie really didn't confess to murder. She repeatedly stated that she did not remember what happened and only suggested that she might have pushed Scarlett's face into the mattress without any intention of causing harm. To the extent that her words could be considered a confession, it could be explained through the agent's unwise and unethical tactic of making promises to Katie that she would not go to jail. The government was unable to prove how Scarlett was asphyxiated. She could have been swaddled too tightly, the bib could have strangled her, pressure could have been applied to her, or other bedding in her crib could have wrapped around her. Furthermore, Scarlett could have died from SIDS, which is what the emergency room medical staff believed. When considering all the evidence in this case, do I think that Katie Richard was guilty of any crime? I believe that Katie was not guilty beyond a reasonable doubt of all charges. However, I believe she was guilty of involuntary manslaughter in reality. She was rough with Scarlett, which caused her death, but she did not intend to kill her. It didn't appear as though Katie made the connection between her behavior and Scarlett's death, like Katie believed she was innocent. What do I think happened in this case? This is just a theory, my opinion. The case of Katie Richard is extremely controversial. There are people on both sides of the issue who maintain strong beliefs about what happened. Some people are absolutely positive that Katie had nothing to do with harming her daughter and believe SIDS must have been to blame. Other people believe there is no doubt she was guilty. Much of the discussion is derived from the interrogation video, which had a strong impact on viewers. Katie certainly didn't help herself by talking to investigators, but there was no smoking gun. It looked like she was really very trusting. She assumed the investigators were telling the truth, and she was trying to assist them to figure out what happened. The behavior of the agents during the interview was distracting, irritating, and raised ethical concerns. It is easy to walk away from watching that video, believing the agents were incompetent. They just would not stop talking, almost like they had no idea what they were doing. What is the point of all the manipulation and deception if they weren't going to give Katie a chance to answer their questions? They weren't allowing the interrogation techniques to work. There was no empathy. They didn't understand what Katie was feeling. Furthermore, the agents ended the interview without getting Katie to make a definitive confession, but they acted like they had a definitive confession. It's always a bad idea to celebrate too early when running a race. The agents eroded the strength of the government's case. I don't believe they knew how to conduct a high-quality investigation. Therefore, it's impossible to trust any of their findings. Whether Katie was responsible for Scarlett's death or not, her overturned involuntary manslaughter conviction has allowed her to build a new narrative, one where she is the victim. Katie said the interview was traumatic and has led to nightmares. Now moving to my final thoughts. There are several lessons that can be learned from this case. 1. Postpartum depression can lead to dangerous behavior. It should be treated by licensed and qualified mental health professionals. 2. Never talk to the police or other investigators. It never improves one's situation. And 3. The Coast Guard may be proficient at rescuing imperiled mariners, but when it comes to interviewing alleged killers, well, let's just say they are still trying to find their bearings. Those are my thoughts in the case of Katie Richard. Please put any opinions and thoughts in the comments section. They consistently generate an interesting dialogue. As always, I hope you found my analysis of this topic to be informative. Thanks for watching.